Ladies and gentlemen, Vladimir Putin has decided to come out and give his opinion on the situation with the United States and Greenland. JD Vance visiting Greenland as we speak. They're about 5 hours ahead of us, at least here on the East Coast, maybe 4 hours. So at this point, he's obviously in Greenland visiting military bases. There's probably closed door meetings. There's people telling me, oh, nobody wants to meet with Vance. Unfortunately, the Greenlanders, the people there, have been pumped with some pretty negative American and negative Trump propaganda, and it's unfortunate. We're going to have to turn that a little bit, and we've discussed how this process will play out with an offer to Greenland and maybe just an offer to Denmark in the first place. If Denmark is really desperate to get something for Greenland, considering Greenland wants to be independent of Denmark, we might just have to deal with Denmark instead of the people of Greenland and then do a separate deal with Greenlanders once we are able to take over the territory from Denmark if it ends up working out like that. The problem is there's a rift right now between Trump and the EU in a pretty big way. You've got Vladimir Putin, though, talking about Trump's plan to seize Greenland and saying it's for real. Putin is admitting it's probably going to happen. Trump said a few weeks ago, he said, yeah, this is something that's going to happen. We have to take it. It's very important for the future of the country, and it's very important for security within North America because Trump and me and many other experts, we've claimed that Greenland really is in the footprint of North America. If you look at it, it's right to the east of Nunavut, which is a territory in Canada. And so very, very close to Canada. And so we view that as part of North America. And Putin has talked about how the United States is pursuing Greenland. And we know Russia has had some serious interest in the waters of the Arctic surrounding Greenland. They control a lot of the Arctic based on where Russia is located. Russia also has a pretty significant footing in Svalbard, Norway, which is a place that there's been questions about, will it be annexed or not? Right now it's kind of disputed, but you can see Putin is saying that the United States does have, well, he doesn't say it here, but he says in other clips, the United States does have a historical claim to Greenland, and that is true. The United States controlled Greenland in the 1940s when Denmark was under control of Nazi Germany. And so the United States saved Greenland. That's why we have a military base on Greenland. That's where Vance is going. And so this is a historical claim by Trump in the United States. But honestly, the idea that it's a historical claim is really irrelevant. This is a situation to where there's 57,000 people that can't secure their own island, and it's located within the footprint geographically to the United States to where we want to secure it, and we want to make sure it's safe, and we want a footing within Greenland, and we also want access to their rare earth minerals, which right now China has a significant advantage, at least when it comes to the amount of rare earths they have. And so it's very important that the United States starts observing the amount of rare earths you can see through soil samples and other things along the coastlines. That's not even talking about the interior of Greenland, which right now is covered in glacier ice, which will probably remain there for a while, but it's still important, and still we understand the potential of Greenland is much greater than just $5 or $10 trillion, which is what they estimate the resources on the coastline to be. And Putin is coming out and saying, yes, the United States does have a territorial claim. The question is Putin doing this to appease Trump? Does he understand that the United States, I mean, Putin has to realize if there was any type of Russian interference in Greenland in terms of them trying to buy it, or Chinese interference, obviously the United States is not going to allow that, but the EU is also not going to allow that. So, and remember, Trump, he's fear-mounted the whole idea of Russia and China having involvement in Greenland, and that is true to a degree. Some of it is built up a little bit to try and convince people, because there has to be technically a reason you do these things, like an annexation of Greenland, and you kind of have to use the excuse, well, it's because of these foreign adversaries who are taking control. And the same thing with the Panama Canal, which was an amazing thing, and now I'm hearing things about the Panama Canal to where the Chinese Communist Party is not allowing Hong Kong to sell those two ports to BlackRock for $23 billion. They're blocking the sale. So we'll have to see what happens there, because Trump has also said there might be aggression in the canal zone to make sure it's secure. Trump's already got a major win there by forcing the Chinese out, and the diplomatic relationship between China and Panama is done. It's been severed. Marco Rubio visited But this is a different story here with Greenland. The point of it is, and you can see Vance in his visit, Vance tours U.S. base in Greenland as Trump talks about taking over the territory. Vance lands in Greenland, a place that doesn't want him. So see, this is just the false narrative, and this is what you have to deal with these people. This is New York Times. Vance lands in Greenland, a place that doesn't... See, this is why these people were trying to be nice to Greenland and the people there, and they won't tell you they're getting pumped with negative Trump propaganda because they're a proxy to the EU because of Denmark. And so you've got the New York Times. Oh, nobody, they don't. I mean, there's closed door meetings happening, we know, between Greenland officials and Vance, and they're talking, and this is the first step. Why do you think Don Jr. went to Greenland back in January? Why do you think it's now Vance? Why do you think Trump's going to end up going to Greenland to seal the deal in a few months? That's a projection. No, it's not really a prediction, but I'm just saying it illustrates they're elevating the pressure on Greenland because at some point something's going to have to move here. And whether or not the people, this is what I keep hearing, the people don't want to be acquired. It's 57,000 people. And this is something that will help them significantly in terms of, I mean, you take a look at when Alaska became a state in the United States, they got a cut of mineral extraction. That's what's going to happen with the people of Greenland. They're going to get a cut of it. Their quality of life right now is very bad. Their infrastructure is a mess. They cannot support themselves. They have to get help from Denmark to help support them. And so that's why it might be this might be a better scenario. But the problem is none of these EU countries like Trump, so they're impossible to deal with. But you would think if you're Denmark and you still technically have territorial control of Greenland, but Greenland is having these elections to where they say the parties that are winning want to be independent. And they said it's going to take a process. It's going to take time to do it. If they want to have an independent government, government and economic system that's independent of Denmark, that's going to take time to be able to put into place because they're taking money from Denmark. So the question becomes, if you're Denmark, let's try and get something for this territory before we lose it for nothing. Now, in terms of the situation where Greenland wants to be independent, can Denmark still sell them? I think they can. And so if you're Denmark, you would be like, all right, listen, we're going to lose them for nothing. If we can get $20 billion in a cash sale to the United States, that would be good. That would give us money and we could get something for, okay, it's not like the United States is China or Russia to where there's this big bad superpower. Although actually we know with the EU and really around the world, yes, people do think we are a big bad superpower, but I mean, we've had cordial relations. We're in NATO together. I mean, that might be ending, but I'm just saying, like, obviously it would be different if it was China or Russia. We know that. That's an East versus West thing. But if you're Denmark, you would say, let's just get something for them. But these European countries, it is a religion to hate Trump. So anything that's deemed as like helping him and expanding, the U.S. empire and stuff. But it's like, if you're Denmark, wouldn't it make sense if they're holding elections and the parties that are winning the elections are headlining their political agendas as saying, we want to leave Denmark, maybe before they leave us through some type of referendum or vote, let's get 20 or $30 billion for this island, which honestly, it really, what is the purpose of Denmark owning it at this point based on where we are in terms of geopolitics? It's not like they can defend Greenland. They obviously cannot. Now you could say, well, it doesn't matter because no one's going to invade Greenland, but that's not the point. The point of it is they can't defend them, and this is a territory within the footprint of North America. It's a lot more North American than it is European. Yes, the people there they become more European because of the manipulation by the EU. And so that's why there's a big problem with the EU. But the EU is weak ever since Brexit. And we don't know what's going to happen to the EU, but there's a lot of people in Canada that hate the EU, and that Canada's talking about joining the EU. And there's all these liberal people saying, well, Trump's forced it. This is bad. Now the EU is going to have good relations with Canada. But Canada is going to separate anyways if that happens. There's going to be a separation between the west and the eastern part. That would be my prediction there. When it comes to this, like, you look at the headlines, nobody wants to visit Vance. It's like, they remember that there was a headline I saw yesterday. They tried to go door to door. U.S. officials went door to door in Greenland to try and get people there to visit Vance, and nobody wanted it. Well, obviously something's changed because when Don Jr. went, there were a bunch of people there. Now there's not really. They're being manipulated through propaganda by Europe. It's bad. And so Vance is going to have some closed door meetings, and he's going to say, listen, this is going to be the easy way or the hard way. Trump has said that as well, and Trump's been so nice. Trump is so much more nice than me. He's such a sweet man, and Vance is just an angel, and these people, they're just great gentlemen. They really are. They are amazing people, and they're so much nicer than these European countries who are just so nasty. Remember when Trump was like, I love Denmark, I love Europe, I love Greenland. It would be so cool to have Greenland one day to protect it. Back in 2019, and Denmark told them to F off, and they were just so nasty. These European countries are just really, really bad. It is bad news. The liberalism is just so, they've destroyed their cultures. A lot of them have, through liberalism. And some of them are trying to push back. That's why you see these right-wing parties rising up. They're like, hey, maybe we shouldn't have all this immigration that's destroying all of our culture. And then it's like, oh, you're racist for saying that. Well, good luck then. But listen, this is a securing of an island that's very important to the United States. And I said it was going to be huge, and it's very, very key. And so Vance is visiting, and they're like, well, they can't get anyone to meet with him. Well, yeah, when you get EU propaganda blasted onto these poor people of Greece, there's 57,000 people. There's 57,000 people. 57,000. Come on, these people, we can convince these people that joining the United States is a more advantageous route than the current situation they have. Or you know what? But this is the problem. It's just this EU obsession with Trump. But it's like, you know what? We won't even deal with Greenland. We'll deal with Greenland after we acquire your territory from Denmark. If you're Denmark, why would you not say, well, let me get something for Greenland before we lose them for nothing if they have some type of referendum to become independent? They should sell Greenland to the United States, and then we'll deal with the people of Greenland. We already have to make major infrastructure investment into Greenland either way, whether we acquire Greenland from Denmark or Greenland leaves Denmark and then we acquire Greenland independently of Denmark. Either way, we have to make huge infrastructure investment to set up mining operations and more military bases and protection and Arctic influence. So all of this has to happen. And that's why they've elevated it. Now Vance has to visit, and then at a certain point, let's get the people to understand that it's going to be better for them, and then we're going to have support there from the Greenlanders for an American, and it's not even a takeover. This is a territory. Look at Puerto Rico. A lot of Americans don't even know Puerto Rico is a U.S. territory because when you look at elections, they're not involved. They're not involved in the presidential elections. And it's not like they have senators or any representation like that. So this is a territory that might become a state like Alaska if enough people from the lower 48 move there. This is not some crazy military takeover where they become a state and it's this huge thing and they're still going to have their own government. We want access to their minerals, which they will get a cut of. We want access to securing their island through military bases and strategical influence within the Arctic. This is a very win-win situation. It might not be a win for Denmark, but maybe it is if we just buy them from Denmark. Then Denmark would also get money. But it's this EU obsession and this infestation with hating Trump that is a real big problem for these people. And it's something we have to deal with. So can relationships be repaired with the EU? Because of the United States' involvement in our cordial relationship now with Russia, I'm not so sure. But does it really matter? Depends. If Trump wants to leave NATO, then the relationship's going to be shot completely. At least to a degree. But, yeah. So, listen, Putin has come out and said, yes, we respect it. We know the United States wants to annex Greenland. It makes sense. It's well within their right. So Putin has come out and admitted that, yeah, it's going to happen, and it's understandable. And so, listen, whatever deal Russia ends up getting, that's going to be a fair deal between them and Ukraine. It's very complicated. Neither Russia or Ukraine is really playing ball on a ceasefire. They're both coming out and saying things. Putin has come out and said, we might just destroy the entire Ukrainian military and be done with it and just take over the entire country. Now Zelensky is saying Putin's going to die soon. It's getting really nasty with them. So they need to work something out. They've got an infrastructure ceasefire, but not a full ceasefire. So when they get a full ceasefire going, which they're trying to joust for position so they can have leverage in terms of negotiations, but obviously Putin is going to want a significant, like in terms of negotiations, it's like 80-20 in terms of Russian demands that need to be met is the 80%, and then Ukrainian demands are 20% because of the advantage that Russia has over Ukraine. Now, if NATO got involved, it would escalate the war, but it would certainly help Ukraine, but that's not going to happen. And even the liberal countries within Europe who are very scared of Russia, they decided to go against the idea of NATO involvement to escalate the war. I mean, they had the choice. Like, they keep criticizing Trump. What do you want him to do? If there's no NATO involvement, Ukraine will not win. Or I don't know what you would classify as a win. I guess it depends. I think the big problem is that Putin wants Putin wants Ukraine to demilitarize. And obviously Ukraine doesn't want that. But either way, guys, that is just the current situation when it comes to the potential acquisition of Greenland. And Vance is visiting. I think there's probably got to be closed door meetings. He's meeting at, this is propaganda visits, but it's not exactly where we want relations right now with Greenlanders to be, because they're very hostile against America. They think we're trying to take them over, all this. If they became a territory, it's not even really a takeover. And, there's no invasion of Greenland. Greenland does not have a military. So what are we talking about with an invasion? Who are we going to fight? European NATO troops? Because France threatened to do that? I mean, it's crazy. There's going to be no fighting on Greenland. It would be securing the island, and look, we'll see if it ends up happening, but there has to be we have to get the ball rolling at some point. So that's why Vance is going. I mean, and this is totally out of the blue. It's obvious Trump wants to annex this country to a degree, of making them a territory. Why else would Vance be going there? This is out of the blue. The Greenland officials said, no, we don't want it, because they're getting their orders from the EU, and the EU hates the United States, and they hate the Trump administration. And so remember, they were very welcome to Don Jr. Very welcome. They had people lined up to see Don Jr. What changed in 3-4 months? Well, they got fed a bunch of propaganda from the EU. That's what happened. It's not necessary, and they're working against us, and there's going to be consequences when you do things like this, and you're this mean to the United States. We're just sick and tired of it, and we're done with it. Even though we're in a ton of debt ourselves, we're still a very powerful country. And that's why we're trying to get out of the debt. We need these minerals. I mean, it's part of it, but we also need to counter China and their mineral potential and capability. So guys, that's going to do it for this video. Make sure you follow me on X. Link to that's always in the description.